Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. Before I get to our guest here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. We greatly appreciate it. We have Kristie Sanderson on the show. She's coming to us all the way from the UK in Birmingham. She's an IFBB Elite Pro, a UK BFF British champ, an Arnold Classic EU runner-up, member of Team Fidel. She's sponsored by Ignite Nutrition, Bikini BKB, and Glutewear, but most importantly, she's our current guest. Kristie, thank you so much for being on.
Hi.
So why don't you give us a little bit of a backstory on what inspired you to make that healthy change and adapt that fit lifestyle?
Okay, I've always been into fitness and sports ever since, really young age. Kind of grew up with my mum and my brother at home, and I did whatever sport I could persuade my mum to let me do, or kind of invest in me at the time. So I started off about the age of 5 swimming, and then I went on to gymnastics and figure skating, which I kind of did back to back from about the age of 5 through till 12 or 13 years old. And then after that, I started taekwondo, so a bit of martial arts. And then as I came into my kind of later teenage years, I kind of fell out of all my childhood hobbies, which now, is a bit of a shame, but life happens. So I fell out of my childhood hobbies till my later teens, early 20s. And then I started back up going to the gym. It started off all very kind of cardio, full body workout based. And I slowly started to tone up. And then as I did that, I started to explore different gyms in Birmingham. Where I live in the UK, it's very central, so we have some really great facilities. So I kind of stumbled across and upon bodybuilding gyms. And, when you walk in there, you've got the pictures on the wall of the best bodybuilders in the world, and you start to have conversations with people. And I had a great physique anyway, the kind of the basis of what could be built on. And so by kind of talking to others, was inspired to go on and start a bodybuilding journey of my own.
That's awesome. And I mean, I always like to make the statement that, if you were to walk into a gym with 100 people, there's 100 different ways as to how they got into shape, whether it comes down to, their diet, their nutrition, what reps they do, what exercises they do. So many little things add up to the package that we end up seeing. Was that difficult for you at first, sort of figuring out what exercises work best for you? Because I always like to say, if you were to go up to someone and say like, hey, that body part of yours is amazing. What did you do to get it to look like that? What worked best for them 99% of the time isn't going to work as good for you.
Absolutely. So, I started kind of building up my muscle at the age of 20, and I'm 30 now, and I'm still learning every week, every day, learning new things and learning what works well for your body and what might work well for your body for a period of time once you've done it for a few months or years or whatever. Once you've done it for a period of time, it stops being effective. And so the key is to kind of switch up what you're doing regularly, adapt different types of training, whether it's high intensity, high volume, low volume. You've just constantly got to switch it up, but at the same time making sure that it's something that's sustainable for you and enjoyable for you, because if it's not, then it's harder to keep going and to make yourself to do it. But I think, there's so much content out there now, and you've got so many kind of idols to look up to that you can easily spend hours on YouTube looking at the big people who've made it and have got great physiques and learn from them. But I think it's definitely a journey, and kind of education is key, and to constantly be open to new ideas and to learn. But there's still so much to learn, even for me now, where I am. I can definitely still continue to learn new techniques, etc.
Absolutely. And I always love to ask, everyone always has that one body part that, just naturally is just built for them, where they don't have to train it as much. They can kind of relax on it a little bit. And then everyone always has that one body part that really just lags behind, that they sort of need to train to overdrive to get it to catch up with everything else. What are those body parts for you?
Okay, so absolutely. I've always been known to have great abs. So even when I first started, I had abs. They're just there even without training them. So I used to get lots and lots of comments on my abs. And then as I developed the rest of my physique, I've actually got to a point now where this year I haven't trained abs at all. And the reason is because because I'm at that standard now, an elite pro standard, when you're getting judged to the very last detail. And because my abs were kind of so thick and blocky from my side shots, it made my waist look wider. And when you're standing in a row of girls of however many's on stage, you're going for that silhouette shape. And so to make my waist smaller, both from the side and the front, we've stopped training my abs. So I have a coach who kind of guides me on my training and my diet. And she said to me, Kristie, no more abs. And at first I was like, no, that's my signature. That's what people know me for. I love them. They'll disappear if I don't train them. And she said, just trust me. They're not going to go anywhere. They're still going to stay. We just need them smaller because it's not what the judges are looking for. So that's probably one of my stronger parts, and something that I now don't train. And then something that I'm focused on at the moment this year is glutes. So for me, glutes are really, really hard to build up. And the main reason for that is because to really power for your glutes involves a lot of strain on your back. And so in my early 20s, I had a back injury. I fell off a mountain bike and injured my lower back, which prevented me from loading on the weight and building up my glutes. And so I've had to kind of work for the last, 10 years, work around building up my glutes with a fear around kind of putting myself out completely through hurting my back.
Yeah, I mean, everyone, if you go and follow her on Instagram, which I'll leave the link down below, I mean, definitely you can see she has some of the best abs that I think we've had for someone that's been on the show. Just it's unbelievable. But do you find that your background in gymnastics also really helped with that? Because gymnasts are always known for having, either great abs, big strong backs just from all the training. Do you think that background in gymnastics really helped you build that foundation when it comes to the way that you look now?
Yeah, I think definitely. I think being sporty and being very active as a child definitely contributed. As an adult, I really wish I'd kept it going a little bit longer, because from the age of 5 to 12, I was really, really good. I think sometimes what would have happened if I'd have continued, what else would I have been able to achieve? But at the same time, kind of everything happens for a reason, and I'm happy with what I've achieved now, for sure.
Absolutely. So, how long into your journey before you realized, like, hey, I could do a show, I could really do this? And was it? I mean, all the stories that we've heard, some of the most popular ones, it's usually just some people walking up to you and saying, like, hey, you look really great, you should really compete. But what was your story like, making that change and deciding, just from starting working out to saying, like, oh my God, I want to compete. This is something that I want to do.
Yeah, I think it definitely did kind of come around from people just walking up to you. If you've got a good physique, generally people will come and compliment you on it. But also, once you get to a stage of working out because you enjoy it and you put so much into it, you get to a point where you kind of want to get something back for it. And if you're a goal orientated person, it kind of goes in your best interest to have a goal at the end of it. And so something that started out as something that was enjoyable to be sustainable needed a goal and ambition attached to it. And I think that's where the competing came into it, because it gave it more of a purpose, it made it more serious, and it made it more interesting, more exciting.
So when you were getting started, I mean, there's always that big, huge myth and misconception that we love to bust on the show that women still have, unfortunately. I mean, it has gotten better the last 5 years, but there are a lot of women that still have that belief where if they touch one weight, they're just gonna, hulk out and put on 50 pounds of muscle overnight. And, I always say to that, sign me up. I'd pay that person thousands of dollars because they would have found the secret. But did you ever have that fear when you were getting started? And even if you didn't, I mean, I bet you hear that all the time now. What is your main response to that?
I think 10 years ago, I thought that way a tiny, tiny little bit. But as soon as I actually started to try and build muscle, I understood and realized it was so far from the truth, because to get where I am now with the muscle mass that I've got has taken 10 years of solid, consistent, lots of food, the lifestyle, everything that goes with it. It is so far from the truth that by women training weights will get massive muscles. You've just got to work for it, and it's got to be done over a long, long period of time. Years.
Absolutely. Like I said, that's my biggest myth, and I love to bust it here on the show because it is just ridiculous. I mean, it's like the what's the worst thing that's going to happen? You're going to end up getting healthier. I mean, it's like people don't realize the amount of hard work and dedication that people like Kristie here have to do just to look for that stage presence. And it's like they don't look like Dwayne The Rock Johnson or Hulk Hogan. I mean, it's like it's ridiculous that people just still have that belief. But I mean, it has been getting better. So hopefully, 5 or 10 years down the road, no one will think like that. Hopefully, but you never know. But what was your first prep like? Because a lot of people, I always love to describe, for a first prep, just to get in the healthy shape where you can get ready for a prep takes so much hard work and dedication, and just the mental aspect of just going to the gym every day, eating that right nutrition. But going on prep is just notching things up a whole different extreme. What was that experience like for you doing that for the first time?
So my prep journey, prep journeys have been quite different. So the first year of competing, I competed as a bikini competitor. So in the female world of bodybuilding, there are, generally speaking, three main categories. There are more, but to kind of summarize it, there are three categories. And the first is bikini. So the criteria that they're looking for in that category, is nice symmetry, nice toned, but not too muscular. And then the second category is figure or body fitness, which is where I sit, which is slightly more muscle definition. They're looking for that silhouette kind of taper, nice big quads, nice shoulders, but then still the muscle density and the kind of, when you diet down, they don't want you too shredded. And then you have third category, which is women's physique, which is female bodybuilding. When you go in for as big as you can, you're going to get as lean as you can. So I sit in the middle now currently, and I think that's where I'll stay. But initially I started off as a bikini competitor, and so my first prep was to compete in a bikini competition, and it was easier in the beginning. So my first prep, I decided that I wanted to compete, and I was 3 weeks away from my first competition date, and I kind of prepared myself without a coach. But then I knew and I was aware that to step on stage, there were things that were done in the final week. For example, managing your water intake, reducing your water intake. There was some things with salt that I wasn't quite aware of. I'd heard that you were supposed to have this meal before and that meal after. And so 3 weeks away from the first competition, I decided, okay, I can't go the full journey on my own. I need to get a coach, so I know exactly what I'm doing and why. Because you can do lots of research online, but it's not always the best information. You're better off getting that information from somebody who's done it, who's got experience, and who you can have a two-way conversation with. So 3 weeks out, I went and got this coach. I still work with her now. She's great, but she kind of told me what I needed to do, what I didn't need to do. And at that point in time, she actually gave me more food, took some cardio away from me because we didn't want me to. I'd got myself to be really kind of lean, but without looking really full. So at that point, she threw some of the bits in for me, cardio out, and we pulled off a good look in the short time that we had. So as a bikini competitor, the preps were hard because I did about 5 or 6 competitions as a bikini athlete, and they were hard, but the kind of bigger you get in terms of the muscle that you've carrying, the harder your prep becomes. So the last prep that I did was by far the toughest, mentally, physically, and I think that's just a result of, I suppose, the pressure, because the kind of level that I was competing at was higher. There was more at stake, but also to build and maintain a higher level of muscle mass is more difficult as it progresses.
Yeah, absolutely. And what really caused you to make that change from going from bikini to figure? Was it just that you realized that you were just getting too big for bikini?
Um, yes. So I'd competed in bikini and I'd done well, and I'd got my feedback, because when I diet down, I do get quite defined. I get nice lines in my legs and I get nice lines in my abs. And so for the bikini category, the feedback after a while was that, it's a bit too much for that category, a bit too much muscle for that category. So either soften up or get bigger. And me being me, I didn't want to go backwards. I wanted to go forwards. I didn't want to not give it everything that I had. I wanted to put in 100%. And so the decision was made to progress up to the next category.
That's awesome. So one of the big things that I love to discuss is that if you were to poll the general population, I mean, there's a low micro percentage of people that would be willing to, go up in basically a bikini and pose in front of people. I mean, it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of, determination. Was that something that you had to work on personally, just convincing yourself to go up there and do it? Or was it one of those things like a lot of guests that we have on the show where they're just like, you know what, I've worked my butt off. I'm just going to go out there and show it off?
Yeah, so the first couple of competitions that I did, it is nerve-wracking. I think I was more nervous about hitting the poses right. So my
Mhm,
coach who helps me with my diet, she also helps me with my stage presence and my stage
mhm,
posing. And so initially I kind of set up with her and we kind of worked on hitting the poses. But you're right, there's such an element of in your head, you are saying to yourself, I have worked so hard for this and that's my time on
mhm.
stage and I'm going to show off what I've got. I'm going to make it mine. That's my 5 minutes to kind of show off months and years of hard work. So although it is kind of in the beginning it was nerve wracking, there's definitely that element of I've earned it, and it does get a lot easier. I think the last three times that I've competed has been a breeze, and the nerves haven't really been there. But in the beginning, yes, for sure, it was quite daunting.
Absolutely, and I mean, one of the things that most people never realize is that for a lot of these competitors, posing is the hardest thing for them. I mean, it's harder than their dieting, it's harder than their training, their nutrition. What was your experience like with posing? Because I know even going from bikini to figure, the posing is completely different. But what was your experience like when it just came to posing in general? Was it something that you picked up easily, or was it something that's more of a struggle? Because I always sort of like to make the comparison of you can be a great driver, you can never be a perfect driver. You can be a great poser, you can never be a perfect poser. What was your experience been like with posing?
So I found it in the beginning was quite hard. So you do, like you say, you have some people that just have it.
Mhm,
And for female posing, you have some girls that just have that flair, and their hands are just made of
mhm,
air, and it looks fantastic. It looks flawless, and it looks
mhm.
effortless. That's so not me. I was the opposite end of that. It gets easier and it
Mhm,
gets better, but it just takes a lot of practice
mhm.
because it's not natural.
Yep.
You are holding and tensing to the maximum.
Mhm,
It's not comfortable. It takes a lot out of you. I
mhm,
think one of the times when I've been on stage this year actually in Barcelona, it was really really intense. We had to go on and off and on and off because they did elimination rounds, and just through posing, you're sweating it. You're really warm. It takes it out of you. It
mhm,
uses up a lot of energy, and at that point, you haven't got a lot of energy to give.
mhm.
You're kind of low on everything. So yeah, it's intense.
Yeah, absolutely. And what was your biggest struggle going from bikini posing to figure posing, I should say, because it is a lot different. I mean, with at least in the United States, I mean, figure posing, it's a lot more of flexing, like a little bit more of the traditional posing that they normally associate with bodybuilding. Was that hard sort of to adapt to that?
For me, it was better because what I
Mhm,
said originally, I'm not one of those kind of
mhm,
girls where it just flows. So to move from bikini, which is that kind
mhm,
of posing, to more mandatory poses was easier for me because it was more my style. It reflected more my
mhm,
personality than perhaps the bikini. So I think when I moved, my shape was more what they were looking for in terms of the judging criteria, but the poses was more what I was
mhm.
looking for in terms of it reflected me and my personality. And so I do improve it all the time, and it has got a lot better. But I prefer the figure posing to the bikini posing because it fits better.
What is your favorite figure pose and least favorite figure pose?
So my favorite figure pose is my one that I do. So they call it your relaxed pose.
Mhm,
So there are mandatory poses, and then they have a favorite pose or a relaxed
mhm,
pose, and that you can kind of put your own twist on.
mhm,
So that's my favorite pose because you can work it to your advantage. You always use that pose to optimize your best assets and to minimize your
mhm,
worst. And it's amazing what you can do with that alone.
mhm,
So my relaxed pose is my favorite pose. And then the worst or least favorite poses is difficult. I think for a figure lady, your front pose doesn't look the most feminine.
mhm,
So I like to hit it because it shows off my physique really well.
mhm,
But when you look at pictures of it, it isn't the most flattering in terms of a female lady pose. Now that I'm in the industry and I know it, to me, it looks fine. But I think for people coming into the industry, when they see a lady hitting a kind of front figure pose,
mhm.
they might judge that it's not, that ladylike. But then on the flip side, your relaxed pose can look as really really feminine and beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just there's so many. I never even knew for a difference that even like for figure girls, there's even like you even have to like flex sometimes your buys, like even for some of those poses, because there's none of that, in the US where it comes down to that. So I mean, it very 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 is different from region to region, which is something that I was just fascinated by. That I mean, it goes completely different. But what was that experience like for you, that first time stepping out on stage and showing off all that hard work? Because I always like to ask all my guests, whether I mean they're in bands or whether they're competing, what is that feeling like? I mean, for my bands, I always ask, what is that like, being on stage and performing live in front of people? But that also applies to the competitors that I have. What is that feeling like for you?
In the beginning, daunting. I think one of the things you don't realise before stepping on stage for the first time is you don't realise what it's going to look like from that side of the stage. You walk on, you've got your judges there, you've got the lights that are shining down on you. Sometimes you're dazzled and you can't even see what's in front of you. And sometimes you can see everything depending on the lighting and the setup of the room. So there have been times where it's been a really kind of daunting experience, and you kind of, before you're waiting to go on stage, you have your competitors, you're all lined up, you're waiting for your number, and your heart's kind of pounding. But like I say, the last 2 or 3 times particularly, it's been a really enjoyable experience, to the point where I've not wanted to kind of leave the stage, and you're still ready to keep on going. But I think that's having that confidence and building up that confidence, and also knowing that you've brought with you a really good package, or you're happy with how you look, and you're quite confident in the fact that you're going to place and you're going to do well. So I think that has a big impact on your presence and your kind of performance on the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And what was your experience like winning that pro card? Because for people out there who aren't familiar, I mean, winning your pro card is probably the highlight for almost everyone who's won it their competitive careers, unless they've won like the Olympia or anything like that. But just winning that pro card, I mean, that really brings validation to all of the hard work that these athletes have put into it. What was your experience like winning that pro card?
Yeah, I was absolutely over the moon. The competition where I went it, I kind of had hoped. I knew that there was a pro card going out that day. I knew that I'd worked hard enough for it. Obviously, you do your research to kind of see what girls are coming and competing on that day, but you can never know for sure who's going to turn up. But you have a good idea of who your competition is. So yeah, it was something that I had in the back of my head, that I'd gone there for that, and I didn't want anything less. But you have to keep those thoughts kind of way back in your head, because at the same time you have to prepare for disappointment. Thankfully, fingers crossed and touch wood and all that, I've never gone to a competition and not placed, and I've competed over 12 or 13 times. So I haven't had that feeling of disappointment, but I've every time completely prepared myself to have it.
Mhm.
Um, but receiving the pro card was fantastic, and that feeling that day, kind of leaving the venue, packing the trophy
Mhm.
away in the booth, and driving home, thinking, you know, it had been a really hard prep, and also becoming a pro then changes the game a little bit.
Mhm.
So, what I do moving forward is going to be completely
Mhm.
different. So the fact that I got that pro card has completely changed the year ahead for me.
So that's what I was going to ask too. How has your training changed? How has your nutrition changed since you became a pro? Because you're sort of in the big leagues now. I mean, now I mean, even though you stepped up a huge notch, I mean, just going into that prep, but now you got to take it up even a little even bigger notch, just to place in the pro division. How has your training sort of differed from that?
Okay, so the training now is really focused on my weaker body parts. We talked about that earlier. So glutes, calves, and trying to bring in this waistline a little bit so it's really taper. And so what we're doing is really comparing my body shape and my physique to the top pros. Literally side by side comparison shots from all the different angles to understand what the judges are going for, the criteria that they're looking for, and kind of chiseling away at my physique to get it looking like that, and using the different training styles to kind of shape my body. And it ranges from kind of going to really really high intensity, high volume training, through to kind of heavy working at giant sets, all that kind of stuff. So at the moment, it's my training is focused on key body areas, but the styles of training are are very changeable and will be throughout this prep. But also, what I do have on my side this year is that I won't be competing until October.
Oh.
So this will be my longest ever off season since I started competing. So the longest off season I've had before was 4 months at the very most. Because when I started competing, I tried out different federations. I was finding my way from bikini to body fitness, and so I did quite a few competitions back to back without kind of giving my body a break to get more food in and to grow and to develop. So now, yeah, I won't be competing until October, so I'm going to have time to make those improvements. So scientifically, I have to come back better than I've kind of showed it before, because I've got more time. I've got more time to grow. I've got more time to chisel and to define. So I'm quite excited to kind of see what package I bring later on. Yeah, this year.
Yeah. And one of my favorite, yeah, I know it's hard. I still, people started saying it's 2019. I was like, oh no, it's not. But then, yeah, it's hard. It always takes me a week or so to get the full adjustment in. But
Yeah.
probably one of my favorite questions to ask, because it's not talked about that much on Instagram, especially among the higher up competitors, is that a lot of people don't realize. I mean, I get people, friends of mine, who come up to me. I mean, even last night at the New Year's Eve party that I was at, a guy came up to me and said, "Hey, I mean, I love your podcast." One of my friends, he goes, and I just assumed, that all of these guests that you have on are just, ripped and shredded 365 days out of the year. Like they have that stage look constantly. Because when you see photos of a lot of these Instagram people, that's all that they really post. Or like when it's covered in the media, they only show like the competition photos. So it's a big shock to people to realize that no, 99.99% of those competitors do not look that way year round. Some people, like, just genetically, freakishly, or through other ways, are able to pull it off. But what was that experience like for you, first off, sort of experiencing the fact that, all of that hard work that you put in on a prep, that look is not sustainable and you are going to have to put on weight afterwards? I mean, a lot of people that we've talked to, they get anxious or they might get a little depressed just knowing that, like, hey, I am going to have to put on weight. What has that been like for you?
Yeah. So, yeah, you definitely, to sustain that dieted look all year round, you just couldn't do it. It's sustainable for a short period of time because you are pushing your body to the extremes and to its limits. So I have found, and I'm actually going through it now. So when you do diet and you get to your very best, so you go and have those photos, and you're right, those are the ones you post on your Instagram, and those are the ones that you look back on. And then in order to grow and to progress, you do have to then put on extra body weight. So after a show, what I do is I reverse diet. So I slowly start adding food back in week on week. It's really important not to just eat a load of junk straight away after a show, because what happens then is you just blow up. Your face before anything else blows up, and it's horrible. You work so long and so hard to get to where you are, and then to let it go is hard, but to do it gradually, week on week, is the best way to do it, because you see it less, and actually you learn to like your body in all its different forms and shapes. So for me, my stage weight typically is 9 stone. And then my off-season weight is between 10.5 and 11 stone. So I'll put on between a stone and a half to 2 stone.
For all my guests in the US who go by pounds, I'll put the measurements down below when she says it. What that converting means.
Yeah, lots of people, even in the UK, work in pounds and kilograms. I've always worked in stones. Don't know why. So I think there's 14 pounds in a stone.
Oh, okay.
So 28 pounds. Okay. But like I said, this will be the longest off season that I have done. So I think I probably will, in the kind of peak of my off season, hit that 11 stone mark. But you kind of just have to tell yourself that you're doing it for a purpose and you're doing it to look better. But you do kind of find yourself, if somebody wants to do like a photo shoot with you or comments on your body when you're in off season, you're like, oh no, this isn't me. I don't always look like this. So you do kind of make excuses about your physique, even though to the average person, you still look healthy and fit, but because that underneath that extra fat there is this better physique, you do find yourself kind of telling people that a lot. when, you know, really the best thing to do is to learn to love the both on season and off season look. And actually this year I'm doing a documentary with a UK media company, and they're tracking my off season. So what we're going to do is every 2 weeks take a shot, you know, same bikini, same backdrop, take a shot every 2 weeks to see the difference in my physique to the peak of my off season, and then see the transformation back down as I diet. So it'll kind of be see me getting fatter, and then down, you know, to being back shredded again. So I'm quite looking forward actually to them for them to document that, and for me to be able to kind of see it and watch it back eventually.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I completely understand that. I mean, we were talking before we started recording about, you know, how cold I live. I mean, I'm in Minnesota where it can get very, very cold. So I put on, you know, easily 20 pounds right before every winter, and I sustain that just because, you know, it helps you survive. If you have that extra fat on you when you're walking out and it's really, really cold. I mean, I don't want to be in that dieted down look because you get cold, you know, even if it was like 50 degrees outside, you get cold just walking out there. So that's just one thing too. So, you know, yeah, I got to wait about 2 or 3 months before I can start losing some of that if I want to, you know, if I want to actually enjoy being outside every once in a while, as I like to say. But now we get to a really fun question that I love to ask. What is your go-to post-show meal?
Go-to post-show meal. So I do like my food, and I think the more extreme the diet, the more you obsess over your post-show meal. And so I'm going to use my last post-show as an example, because I was starving by the end of it, and I had kind of got to this mind place of being a bit food obsessed, to the point of coming home in the car with my coach after the last show. I was talking to her about, I'm going to have this, going to have that, and she was like, Kristie, will you just stop talking about food? And I hadn't realised that I'd been talking about it and probably obsessing over it the whole way back. But what I had when I got home was just a mixture of lots of different foods, because I knew that to have one big meal of something would fill me up, and it would almost kind of be a waste of all the things that I'd missed for so long. So we had some kind of chicken fajitas, some bits of cheese, some kind of Doritos. It was kind of like a Mexican style that I went for. So yeah, my answer to that question would be go-to meal is not a meal as such, but almost like a tapas style of different flavors and tastes, because you literally just live off the same thing for so long, you know, sweet potato, rice, chicken, turkey, beef, and really small portions at that. So to just have some kind of flavor back again, because when you're dieting and shredding down, I think last time I was around 4% body fat. So you have no sugars, you have no sauces, your food is just plain. So just to have some flavor back in your life is really, really nice. But I'm more of a savory than a sweet person.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to drop a bombshell on everyone here. She's also a mom. I mean, I know looking at her, you would never think that she ever had a kid, just because, like I said, you look like you're 22 years old, basically. I mean, you look so young. That's one of the bigger benefits of, you know, working out, is that, I mean, we've had guests on here that are like 45 years old and they don't look a day over like 25. And I'm like, wow, that's just amazing. But what are some of the struggles of also, you know, like being a mom? Because I like to say, you know, being a mom, that is a full-time job and a full-time commitment. How has your time management been when it comes to, I mean, I know now when we talked earlier, you said, you know, now that your son's older, you can start taking him to the gym. But even when you were starting out, how difficult was that? Or what were some strategies that you used to still be able to get that workout in?
Yeah, so time management is absolutely key. And I think I always kind of say to other people, you know, don't make up excuses. I think it's easier because I just have one child. So I do empathise and sympathise with mums or single mums that perhaps have more than one child, because it is a lot harder. But for having just one child with me has been easier, because what I've done is, through him growing up, is kind of built our lives around each other. So you know, I've always had him in after school clubs to scouts. He does kickboxing, so he's been kickboxing for the last 5 to 6 years. But what I've done is geographically kind of made sure that everything fits around each other. So his gym is next to my gym, and when he has this class, I have that class, and just so everything just kind of fit. And of course, you have to kind of change your schedule around, and his stuff does change. But it's just a case of kind of shifting it all back around and making it work. Now that he's older, like I say, he comes to the gym with me. So a lot of the gyms that I go to, any kind of bodybuilding gyms, they usually have boxing facilities attached to them. So now what I do is I'll go in the gym area and just stick him in kind of the boxing area, and that just works really, really well. Um, yeah. So
Yeah.
you have to just kind of make it work.
Mhm.
Otherwise you can't get the results that you want. And also, like at home, I have cardio bike.
Mhm.
So when I'm dieting, I have to kind of do cardio in the morning, go to work, then training in the evening, then cardio again at night. So there was no other way for me to get that done other than have cardio facilities at home.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people just don't realize how much dedication these people have, especially the ones that, have kids or have, like regular, like 40-hour-a-week jobs. I mean, there's so much dedication. And that's why whenever I talk to people and they just say, like, oh, I don't have enough time, I always say, like, I've had nurses who work 14-hour shifts on this show who are still able to, go in and work out. So it's all about, that time management. But how important is it to you also just serve that positive role model to your son so that he grows up and says, like, hey, my mom is really strong, my mom is really buff, and that's okay, because I can guarantee you look different than a lot of his friends probably moms do that he goes to. How important is that to you to have that positive image on him so that he grows up also knowing that healthy and fit lifestyle?
Yeah, really, really important. And I don't enforce my lifestyle
Mhm.
on him, because he's, at the end of the day, he's still a kid.
Mhm.
If he wants to eat a bit of junk food every now and
Mhm.
then that's what kids
Yep.
do. I do try and encourage healthy choices, and when he's with me, eats well and exercises. And we've kind of, with him, with his kickboxing, we've kind of gone through some a bit of a roller coaster, like initially,
Mhm.
with kind of him. So he got to a certain level of um where he's at, and he's like, Mom, I've had enough now and it's getting hard. And there was times where I had to really push him and kind of say, look, in order to be successful at something, you have to do it consistently, and you have to push through the times that are tough and keep going, to come out on the other side. And we've kind of been through that journey with him, but he has come out the other side, and now he's really kind of happy that I made him be consistent with something that we'd started out. And it wasn't so much the fact of the sport; it was more to the point that if you start something, finish it, be a finisher completer.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, now he wants to do more of what I'm doing
Mhm.
naturally without me kind of pushing him to do it. So
Yeah.
it's worked out well.
That's awesome. And what does he think about having, a mom who has muscles? Does he love it, or what does he usually say? Is he really, proud of you?
Yeah, he is proud of me, definitely. He's come to a couple of shows, and he's shouted me on and kind of encouraged. So it's great to have that there.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, two of my favorite questions that I always love to ask. I mean, for me personally, when I started working out, getting bigger and stronger, the one negative thing for me is that you're going to get asked to move a lot of people's furniture. You're going to get asked to open a lot of pickle jars. I mean, I'm still at home with my parents. I graduated from college like 6 months ago, but I'm still, I got 3 more months and then I'm moving out. But whenever my parents come home, I basically carry in, all the groceries for them. Have you found that to be a similar case where people just looking at you, they just assume that you can do favors like that for them?
Yeah, there's been a couple of times, I think, when I've been, so I'm quite close with my nan, and
Mhm.
my nan helps out with my son
Mhm.
quite a lot. And so, when I go around and visit her, in the past, she's kind of said, come on, Christine, you've got the muscles. And I always say, no, no, they're just for show, they're not real.
Yeah, I mean, I got that where it was for me last summer, the entire summer, every other weekend, a friend would text me and just be like, "Hey, Ryan, I'm moving out of my parents' house. I need help, like lifting a couch or a chair." It got to the point where I did appreciate that they recognized the hard work that I put in, but I also told them, I said, "Okay, I'm doing it after I got my workout in because I'm not going to get tired from lifting your stuff, so that I'm not able to work out." So it's just
Yeah,
just a funny thing. And one also, I'm 6'3" also, so I'm very very tall. So if you were just to look at me in the street and I'm wearing like a sweater like I am now, you'd be like, "Oh yeah, that guy could help me move." So it's kind of a double edged sword where they look at me and then they're like, "Oh yeah." For sure, but probably my favorite question to ask, and again, this is a multi-million-dollar idea for anyone out there listening, but when it comes to clothes for fit women and women with muscle, your clothing options can be limited. I always like to say, if you have big shoulders, dresses are somewhat out of the picture. Jeans are another thing that we hear of all the time where it's almost impossible to find the right pair. What are some ways that you sort of compensate for the fact that your clothing options are limited?
They are massively limited, and there's not many things left in my wardrobe that I used to wear that
Mhm.
I can wear now. Lycra is definitely the solution to everything. So in terms of like work wear, a nice kind of pair of leggings,
Mhm.
stretchy trousers, because you've got this thing where you've got a little waist, but your
Mhm.
quads are massive. So it's just got to be kind of stretchy. Tops, again, kind of when I'm at work as well, because I work in a kind of a more corporate world. I don't really like to have all my muscles on show at
Yep.
work, just because you don't want people to kind of judge you for whatever
Yeah.
reason. So I like to kind of keep long sleeve tops on, so they're all kind of stretchy.
Mhm.
You can forget kind of having a nice fitted blazer,
Mhm.
unless you have it tailor made, because clothes aren't made for kind of big
Mhm.
shoulders, big backs,
Mhm.
and small waist. The amount of times that I have got stuck in a changing room like that, I've even had to, some mornings where I've tried on old stuff, got stuck in a top
Mhm.
and had to get my son to come in and kind of help me get out of it. Yeah, it gets pretty bad. So you learn to just buy kind of the
Mhm.
same clothes. For me, it's finding clothes for work, because other
Mhm.
than work, I'm usually in my gym stuff, which is nice and stretchy. So yeah, it's kind of finding those work outfits.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in a warehouse, so it's nice. So I can wear, like stretchy clothes where it's not that big of a deal. But yeah, I totally, and that's another reason, like you sort of mentioned, is why I love to have muscular people on, especially women though too, is because, like you said, if you were to go like let's say like sleeveless to the office, I mean, that would be like a huge distraction where a lot of people then. But I love to have especially the muscular women on because a lot of people don't realize, especially when they see people in public, they don't realize that there's a human being down behind that. They just look at the muscles and that sort of distracts them, just because like it is
Yeah,
you don't see that every day. And human beings, we're just generally just naturally we're just instinctive, where if we see something that we don't see, it fascinates, it confuses and then fascinates us. So I love having especially female bodybuilders come on the show, just to tell their stories, because like I said, I mean, like if you were to look at her in person in real life, you might not be able to like realize that there's a person deep down. You might just look at her muscles and be like, oh my god, wow, that's awesome. But then you might just, or it's just I love having guests come on and share their stories, because like I said, you realize that they're just people just like you and me. They just might work out at the gym a little bit more, and they might be able to lift a little bit more than you. But I mean, it's just the amount of hard work and dedication that they put into it, and they're just people just like you and me. There's nothing that separates them. And I mean, it's just the hard work and dedication really, really, truly is amazing. But now, I mean, I sort of went over, like what your favorite body, or what your body part that you don't need to train as much, and your body part that you really need to train. But what is your favorite exercise to do, and what is your least favorite exercise to do?
this is a really tough
Hmm.
question. I think because I just love exercise
Hmm.
and I love working out. Some days I'll go to the gym and I do like leg day, shoulder day, back day,
Hmm.
and most of the time, I'll go and I'll do leg day, and I think, oh god, I love this exercise. Legs is my favorite day to train, and then another day I'll go and I do a back exercise, and I'm like, oh, back's definitely my best
Hmm.
day. So I love training everything. There's nothing particularly that I don't like training. Of course, leg day is the hardest.
Yes.
It's the biggest muscle, the biggest muscle group, and with a back issue, it's kind of,
Hmm.
there's that fear factor there that if you go too far, you're going to put yourself out. But that doesn't make it my least kind of favorite.
Hmm.
So I don't think I can give you an answer on
Oh.
best and worst, because I just love training. I love the feeling
Mhm.
that I get from it. Um,
I'll give an easy answer. I'll say cardio is your least favorite thing to do.
yes, yes, yeah. Cardio is, so
Yeah.
in my off season. I don't do any
Mhm.
cardio
Mhm.
at all, really, other than like kind of high intensity training. But when I'm dieting, yeah, I'll get up to 2 hours of cardio a day.
Mhm.
But that's really low, slow, because you don't want to be burning through muscle, so you
Mhm.
have to do it, really, really slow intensity. Um, and you have to get quite creative to keep
Mhm.
yourself occupied for that amount of time. So watching podcasts, listening
Mhm.
to music videos,
Mhm.
reading, all that kind of stuff. But having said that, sometimes I do miss a little bit of cardio as well. I think once you become so used to doing it through your shred and your diet, you have to kind of reverse yourself off of that as well.
Yeah,
Because
100%.
and I think the reason is because it makes you feel good again.
Yep.
And releases your endorphins. It makes you, you sweat, so you feel like you're cleansed. So that element of not doing cardio, I do miss every
Oh,
now and then.
yeah, absolutely. Now that I put on my winter weight too, yeah, every once in a while I miss that where I was like, okay, I got to go on the thing, but then I just realized like, no, if you lose all the weight, you're not going to enjoy it. So for me, I mean, that's definitely one of those things that I just completely understand. And I mean, I was going to say this ahead of time, but I mean, if everyone doesn't know, I mean, just from looking at it, but you have like a supermodel face. When I saw you on Instagram, I was like, oh my God, she looks like a supermodel. Basically, if you just saw your face, I mean, it's a very beautiful face. It looks like you could be like one of those, fashion models. Have you found that especially when you're wearing like like you said your work stuff where it doesn't really show off, that people are really shocked when they see that you have all these muscles? Do you find that? Because like if I were to just look at you and you were like all covered up, I'd be like, oh, she looks like like a fashion model or something like that. And then if you were to like take off like your shirt, and I was like, oh my God, wow, she's got muscles. Have you found that it shocks a lot of people?
Yeah, so I think when I've got my clothes on and everything's covered up,
Hmm.
my I actually look quite petite,
Hmm.
and I've got quite a small frame in
Hmm.
itself. I've not got a big frame. It's only kind of when I've got everything out that you
Hmm.
you can see it. So yeah, I have had it before where I've kind of been in somebody's company just as with jackets
Hmm.
and stuff on, and then taking them off, and it was like, oh, I never expected to see that
Hmm.
kind of underneath there. So yeah, I've had that experience.
Yeah. So now before we wrap things up here, I'm gonna ask her a few questions that I love to ask all my guests and sort of get her answers and see how she stacks up to all the other health and fitness guests that we've had on. So for our first question, what is one thing about the sport of bodybuilding that you would change if you had the all-knowing power to do so?
Tough question. I think, what would I change? Bodybuilding can be quite political.
Hmm.
There are different federations with different rules, and of course, it's very subjective in terms of how it's judged.
Hmm.
Um, there is no kind of, it's not like a neck on neck competition
Hmm.
of weightlifting where you either lift the weight and you don't, and the person that does wins and the person that doesn't win. It's not that, because they are looking at you, and sometimes you prepare yourself towards and against the criteria that has been specified, but then sometimes the results aren't always, they don't always marry up.
Hmm.
And bodybuilders will talk about this for days and
Believe me,
hours
we've
upon
heard it. Yep.
hours. And for my own personal experience, so when I went to Barcelona for the Arnold
Hmm.
Classic, I competed in a class of 30 girls.
Hmm.
Um, I came second, so I came runner up. But the feedback that I got was that I was a little bit too lean and I had too many lines in my legs
Hmm.
against the girl that won.
Hmm.
Um, and we asked for the scorecard, and the girl that came first and myself, our scores were exactly the same, apart from in the first round where I scored higher than she did.
Hmm.
So over 3 rounds, I got a better score, a
Wow.
higher score. But overall, she won
Hmm.
because the final say between who came first and second went down to the head judge.
Oh.
So you can imagine,
Yep.
it all gets very political. There's lots of kind of, how is that decision made? How, when it was so close, lots of influencing factors. So I think that's not necessarily something you can change about
Hmm.
the sport, but it's just something that exists within the sport,
Hmm.
that will continue to do so. But it's very controversial, and everyone's got their opinion on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, I saw photos, and if you go follow her on Instagram again, I'll leave the links down below. I mean, you'll see. I mean, she looked amazing for that competition. So yeah, I mean, I personally thought that you should have definitely won that. So yeah, it's just one of those things too, where it does get political, unfortunately. But now, going on in our questionnaire. So, what is one item that you always need to have in your fridge?
Chicken,
Chicken. Yep.
chicken.
Do
Um,
do you go or do you try to go natural, or where do you get your chicken at?
so just the supermarket,
Oh.
but obviously the amount of chicken and meat that I have to eat,
Mm-hmm.
you have to be quite savvy because it gets expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So, kind of buying it from the right places at the right amount.
Mhm.
I think over time you learn where your best deals are. But obviously, my diet revolves around a meat and a carb. So in terms of what I have in the fridge, there's always chicken and steak
Mhm.
in there, and then your carbs in the cupboard.
Absolutely. So I got two final questions on the questionnaire. So if you never discovered bodybuilding or never took up bodybuilding, where do you think you would be at in life? What do you think you'd be doing?
I think, well, I was training anyway
Mhm.
before bodybuilding, so maybe I would have kept that up, but not took it to the extreme that I
Mhm.
have. But I'm the kind of person, I like extremes.
Mhm.
If I'm going to do something, I want to do it properly. But I think had I not got into bodybuilding, I'm able to find something else. But I'm also, really career focused. I
Yep.
love what I do in terms of work. So I work in marketing and brand for a
Mhm.
tech company. And I like to put 100% into that too. So I think maybe if I wasn't a bodybuilder, that there'd be more focus on my work. But then there's a nice focus on both. So I think what I like about my life is that there's a variety of different things and there's a balance of different things. And I think that's kind of the key to being successful in different areas of life, is to have multiple areas of your
Mhm.
life and a balance across them.
Yeah, absolutely. And lastly, if you could go back in time and talk to the 18-year-old version of yourself, what would be the best piece of advice you would give her?
Oh, that is a tough question. Be yourself, have
Mhm.
confidence in yourself, um, and keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah,
Have no regrets.
absolutely.
Um, yeah, I don't have any regrets.
Mhm.
I think maybe would have liked to started to do some things a little bit earlier,
Mhm.
but other than that,
Yeah.
yeah, just I think confidence is key. Have confidence in your efforts and know that your best is your best and you can't do any better than that.
Absolutely, 100%. And again, you guys, Kristie Sanderson, we cannot thank you enough for coming on the podcast. Everyone, I mean, go and follow her. I'll leave a link for her YouTube channel down below, which I highly recommend. And this will also be on her YouTube channel. So everyone go and check that out. It's very, very motivating. Go and follow her on Instagram. Like I always said, she'll motivate you just by looking at some of her photos. You'll want to get off the couch and stop eating those Twinkies and, adapt that more healthy and fit lifestyle. Are there any other ways that people could, get in touch, or any other ways that people could see you other than, Instagram and YouTube?
I think Instagram and YouTube are the main
Mhm.
ones. So, drop me a DM on Instagram. I always try and get back to all my followers. And my YouTube channel is kind of work in progress.
Mhm.
So, you know,
Yeah.
I'll respond and be interactive on there too.
Absolutely. So again, you guys go and do that. And now, lastly, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to?
Oh, who would I give a shout out to? Do you know what? It's gotta be my coach, hasn't it? The lady that's kind of brought me from that kind of skinny
Mhm.
fitness girl to an IFBB elite pro.
Mhm.
So her name's Claire McKee, and she's kind of guided me on this journey. So it's got to go to her.
That's awesome. So again, you guys go and follow her. I'll leave all of her links down below. Again, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us. I love having guests from all different parts of the world. I mean, you're probably our ninth or 10th guest. It might be our 10th guest actually from the UK that we've had on the show so far. And I mean, I love having all different types of people from all countries. So again, thank you so much for coming on, you guys. Go give her a follow. All, like I said, all the links down below. And this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.